Hey everybody, this is Tao at the Forge, and recently on Arena, Wizards of the Coast opened up the Brawl Guildhall for every day of the week and not just Wednesday. And I still don't know why it's open just on Wednesday, but anyways, I decided to go ahead and see what I could do and make my own Brawl deck and see how it worked. So I decided to go with Syr Faren the Hengehammer, mainly because I think that is an interesting card. It's not super complex, but also it's not one that I think a lot of other people pick. And so I thought I'd give it a shot with this one and see what I could do. So Syr Faren the Hengehammer's ability is that whenever he attacks, another target attacking creature gets +X until end of turn, where X is Syr Faren's power. Okay, so basically what we want to do here is this commander wants to be super aggressive, right? So he wants to come out really aggressively and he wants to swing all the time. But your opponents are going to want to destroy him all the time because that way your other creatures can't get his boost. So there's going to be a couple things. First of all, I would expect that Syr Faren's going to eat a lot of removal in the beginning of the game. This means, but it's okay because he's going to only cost 2, right? So the next time you get him out is for 4 and then for 6, and it's actually not so bad. Right, you can get him. I've got him out like 3 or 4 times in a game, and it's actually an amazing pressure that he puts on, because later on your opponents have to deal with like you're blocking your bigger creatures or blocking him, and it's not really worth it to block him sometimes, especially if you're super aggressive, right? So like I'll give you an example. At one point I had Nylea, right? Oops, let me just put her back then. Okay, so I had Nylea in there, and she was being buffed, so she was doing something like 14 or something, 12 damage per turn, right? So you're going to get Syr Faren, and he's coming in, and he's got like, let's say +5 on him or something like that. So he's a 7/7. Now you can block him, but at the same time, Nylea's coming in, and she's a 12. Right, so who are you going to block? And so my opponent had a really hard time like blocking Syr Faren. Now, one of the keys, as I mentioned though, is that you're going to have to be super aggressive with this deck, right? You want to attack as much as possible, especially in the early game. This deck is extremely brutal. Like it's not favorable against like blue-white board wipe type control decks. Those decks are really hard on us. But it can actually, like I've actually gone up against a Teferi Brawl deck twice and beat it both times, right? Because mainly Teferi wants to return this to your hand, and I'm okay with returning to my hand because I can just cast it out again because it's so cheap. So that's actually okay. Okay, let's see what we got. Like basically, what this is a combination of mono green good stuff with a few enchantments and a few equipments. Now I've tried to keep it with equipments because when like the problem with enchantments like Oakenform here is it's good, but once the creature that has it dies, then it's just gone and you can't get it back, right? Whereas something like Shadow Spear, if your creature dies, then the equipment at least stays on the battlefield and it can be re-equipped later, right? So it's a way of getting these bonuses onto Syr Faren without having to lose them all the time. So I don't have too many enchantments. There's a few, but mostly I try to keep it with equipments if possible. Okay, so the first one we have is, let's go through what we have is Pelt Collector. So Pelt Collector is just good, like I've had him down on turn 1 luckily, and then Syr Faren on turn 2, which puts a +1/+1 counter on Pelt Collector, and then on turn 3 we're attacking with Syr Faren. So my opponent had no creatures at this time. So on turn 2, Pelt Collector is attacking for 2, and then on turn 3, Pelt Collector is attacking. He has 2, but he also gets 2, so he's attacking for 4. Plus Syr Faren was attacking, so that's 6 damage. And so in total, we had done 9 damage by turn 3, which is actually pretty good. And technically, you could actually make this even worse. Like, so if, for instance, you got Oakenform, then your Syr Faren's going for 5, and Pelt Collector would be going for 7 at that point. And so you could actually almost like just crush your opponent with Syr Faren and Pelt Collector and one sort of buff in some way. Okay, so Pelt Collector is really good. Stony Strength puts a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control and untap it. So this one I like is because it's an instant. It puts a counter on the creature, but also that it untaps it, so it can be a combat trick as well. You trick your opponent into swinging in when you don't have, like when it looks like your defenses are down, and you can surprise untap a creature. Shadow Sphere is just good because your opponent's creatures can lose hexproof and indestructible, which is nice. But also, the trample and lifelink is important later on, right? Especially that lifelink can keep you alive. So, and it's a pretty low equip cost as well. Stonecoil Serpent is pretty good because it matches up with whatever mana, like it scales with whatever mana you happen to have at the time. And also it has counters and also reach, trample, and protection. So all around Stonecoil Serpent is just amazing. Destiny Spinner. So Destiny Spinner is not amazing because what happens is it becomes a elemental creature, or it can turn a land. It's kind of like Baby Nissa, right? Where it can turn a land into an elemental creature, where X is the number of elementals you control, but we don't have too many, or we don't have enchantments. We don't have that many enchantments. So it's not that great, but I do like it for its ability that creature and enchantment spells you control can't be countered, right? So if we can get this down early, if we're playing against a control deck, right, then we can try and put this down and not get shut down their counters. And pretty much almost all of our stuff is creatures. Okay, so Wildborn Preserver is again a nice flash creature with reach, but I like the fact that, okay, so first of all, we only have 2 humans in the whole deck, right? One of them is the commander. So whenever a non-human creature enters the battlefield, you may pay X, and it lets you use up your spare mana. And I found usually we have spare mana that we can just add extra counters to Wildborn Preserver. Right? Kenneth Transformation is actually an interesting card because it lets you draw a card, but it's also removal. So what I typically like to do is put this on my opponent's commander, right? If you can, or sometimes, like for instance, they had an indestructible creature, right? Like one of the indestructible gods or whatever. So you can put this on the indestructible god, and then you can actually kill it. So, and you get to draw a card off it. So Kenneth Transformation, pretty good removal. Seasons of Growth, if you can get it down, is just nice because it allows you to draw a card every once in a while. Green doesn't have a ton of card draw, but allows you to draw a card, but also scry cards. So you can get more of what you want and kind of skip the things that you don't want. Warbrier's Blessing is an enchantment. I like it mainly because it gives Syr Faren, if you put on Syr Faren, it gives him a bit of a boost, so he's a little bit harder to kill when he's swinging in, but it also can be used as removal to make it so one of your creatures fights another creature. Right? Mirror Shield, for the same thing. If you can put that onto your opponent or onto your commander, you can get a +0/+2. It's pretty cheap to put on, but it also can't be blocked by a creature with Death Touch, and it has hexproof. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to remove your commander if you can get this. It's kind of like the poor man's Swiftfoot Boots or whatever. Finale of Devastation, I've never had the chance to actually play, but it allows you, the reason why it's here is that late in the game, if you've gone late game, you're basically in a lot of trouble, right? So what this is hopefully going to do is allow you to get one of your big creatures out and just swing in for the last bit of damage that you might need and kind of surprise your opponent. So that's the idea behind Finale of Devastation. I'm not sure about this card. I've never had a chance to use it because usually I've either won or lost before this can be played. But overall, I think it's a good include. All right, Evolution Sage. This one is amazing. Like this because we're playing counters. Like we have a lot of +1/+1 counters on things. Being able to proliferate on things is actually really cool, and especially like if you've got Nissa down, or even one of the other planeswalkers, Ugin or Jiang Yang Yu, being able to put a proliferate a counter onto him every single time is actually pretty nice. Okay. Cetacean Champion, is basically whenever enchantment enters the battlefield, you draw a +1, you get a counter on him and you draw a card. Again, there's not a ton of enchantments, but just even the occasional card draw is going to be nice, right? We've got some enchantments, right? But just even getting some card draw is going to be nice. So that's pretty much why she's there. Right, Thrashing Brontodon is to destroy target enchantments, and it's a good creature, a 3-mana 3/4, and you can sacrifice it to destroy an artifact or enchantment. That's pretty nice. Yorvo, Lord of Garin. Now this one's here. He's just okay. He has counters. He's going to come in pretty big. He comes in as a 4/4, but also can become bigger. But also you can proliferate and add counters to him as well. So you can make him bigger. And he also has the triple green cost, which is not actually hard for us to pay since we're mono green. Right, so I actually like him, and he also helps later on getting something like Nylea online, because when we have devotion, we can have a lot of devotion to green. Band Together is pretty nice. It's just another form of removal, so up to 2 target creatures you control each deal damage equal to their power to another target creature. Now, the good thing about Band Together, it doesn't say you have to fight the other creature. It just says you deal damage to them. So if your opponent has like a Death Toucher or something like that, or let's say you have a combined 7 power, but your opponent has a 7/7. Like the other creature doesn't attack back. This just like flat out kills the other creature. So it's a nice form of removal. Hydra's Growth, well, come on, like Hydra's Growth is ridiculous. It enters a battlefield with +1/+1 counter on a creature, and then you double the counters on the creature every turn. This, if they don't deal with that right away, then like that creature is just going to get ridiculous. And especially if you put it on Syr Faren, right? Then if you can put that on Syr Faren, that is doubling every time, and then he's doubling and adding his power to other creatures, it's just ridiculous. Jiang Yang Yu is actually a pretty good include. I've never really played him outside of Brawl, but putting a counter on your other creatures and then having those creatures be able to produce mana for you is actually really nice. So it's pretty good. And then once you proliferate, you can keep him alive by constantly adding counters onto him, and then like you can proliferate onto him, and then he can move those counters basically to other creatures. Right, Nature's End or Natural End, I just put in there because it can just destroy target artifact and enchantment. There are some things that are artifacts and enchantments that are just brutal. This one is just a nice way to get rid of it. Especially a common thing is like, for instance, your opponent put Frogify on your commander or something, and then they'll think that he's out of commission. They'll leave him alone for a while. And the last second, you can actually just put the target take that enchantment off of it. Right, so it's a nice one of. I wouldn't put too many of these in here, but it's an okay one to have. Oakenform, another enchantment. Now, I would actually replace these with equipments if I could, but there's not that many equipments. So, enchanted creature gets +3/+3. Basically, again, if you can put this on Syr Faren on turn 3, so like I said, let's say you have turn 1 Pelt Collector, turn 2 Syr Faren, turn 3 Oakenform, right? You're doing just a ton of damage. Like it might actually, it's not lethal, but it's pretty close, right? By turn 3, if you can get that, if you can pull that together. All right, so Nylea Keen-Eyed. Now, this one has been a real game finisher for me. Like because she's indestructible, it also makes all your creatures cost a little bit cheaper, right? And then reveal the top card of your library, and like this gives you extra cards because we're so heavily creature based. This is almost always going to put a creature into our hand. Right, so Nylea Keen-Eyed is really strong in this deck, especially when combined with Syr Faren. Right, Occam Adversary. Now, the thing with Occam Adversary is a 2-mana 2/3. I've never actually had the discount to get him like for 2 mana. I guess, but I suppose it could happen. But whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card, and he has Death Touch. So very often your opponent's going to be unwilling to trade, because he's Death Touch. So a lot of times what will happen is that they'll just let him through, but that lets you draw a card, and drawing cards in green is really good. So it's just an extra way for us to draw cards, right? Arasa of the Endless Web. Now, whenever I've played opponents that are heavily sorcery based, like that try and play a lot of counters or instant speed card draw and stuff like that, this just creates an unbelievable pressure on them, right? Like they feel like they have to get rid of this right away. Okay, because whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. So if they're casting a lot of instants and sorceries, right, then like basically this is going to make a whole crap ton of little spiders for them to deal with. I like it. It's just extra value, and a 4-mana 3/5 isn't bad just even on its own. All right, Beast Whisperer. So whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. That's just flat out really good. Right, like being able to draw a card every single time you cast a creature just can refill your hand all the time. And like I said, most of our deck is creatures, so that's like I said, this guy is just awesome. Nightpack Ambusher. To be honest, I'm actually not sure about this one. So because basically what Nightpack Ambusher wants you to do is not cast anything on your turn. But very rarely do we not want to cast anything on our turn. Still, he is a 4/4 for 4. He has the double green for devotion. Other wolves, which is actually important for some other parts of our deck, are actually okay. But I mean, we could actually substitute him out for something else. I've rarely ever just not done anything on my turn. So this one is not the best include, but it's just good value. And just in case you don't have anything to do on your turn, then like maybe you could use this, right? Like for instance, I'll jump over here. We have Biogenic Ooze. So it could be that instead of spending your mana on casting a spell, you could spend your mana on Biogenic Oozes or something like that, and then your Nightpack Ambusher would make another green wolf token, or you might be preparing to cast like an instant or something like that. So it's possible. It's not the best, like perfectly synergizing creature, but it's okay. Questing Beast is, well, I mean, Vigilance, Death Touch, Haste, 4/4 for 4, right? Can't be blocked by creatures. Can't prevent combat damage. Right, and then when it deals combat damage to opponent, deals that much damage to target planeswalker. I mean, like this card is just amazing. So I mean, this is an auto include pretty much for mono green good stuff. Okay, Renata called to the hunt. So her power is equal to your devotion to green, which is very strong. But every other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional counter on it. So we want to put counters on things. We want to try and pump up our creatures and be really aggressive. So Renata called to the hunt is actually very strong. Mantle of the Wolf. So your enchanted creature gets +4/+4, and when it's put into the graveyard, you create 2 green wolf tokens, so it can actually replace itself, if it ever gets taken down, and that actually synergizes with Nightpack Ambusher a little bit. Okay, Outmuscle, you put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature you control, then it has to fight a creature you don't control. But it does gain indestructible if you spent at least 3 green mana, which is pretty much 100% of the time. So basically you're going to make one of your creatures indestructible and then get to remove another creature. Wolfrider Saddle is an equipment. Even though it's green, it doesn't look like an equipment on the card because most equipment is just a silver color or gray color. But the Wolfrider Saddle is pretty good because it creates a 2/2 green wolf, which again synergizes with the Nightpack Ambusher. But basically what happens is you can equip this onto another one of your creatures, and it can't be blocked by more than one creature. So if you can put something on Syr Faren to pump him up a little bit, and then you can put this on him, then basically it makes it really difficult for your opponent to block him because he'll have like a lot of power, but he can't also be blocked by multiple people. So I mean, it's pretty decent. Garin Paladin is 5 mana 4/4, but it comes in with a +1/+1 counter, and the important thing is it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. This one is not the greatest card in the deck. I would be potentially willing to substitute this one out for something else, but I mean, getting a 5/5 for 5 that has a little bit of evasion is pretty good. Okay, Biogenic Ooze. Biogenic Ooze is, another amazing one because it creates oozes and puts counters on all the oozes you control. So if your opponent doesn't deal with this, then basically they're just gonna get oozed out like crazy. right? Cavalier of Thorns. I've actually never played this. I played like 10 matches or so of Brawl with this deck and never got Cavalier of Thorns. But again, you're looking at 5 mana for a 5/6 with reach, right? And then reveal the top 5 cards of your library, put a land from among them into the battlefield. When it dies, you may exile it, put another target card from your graveyard back. So basically, it's a form of card draw, a little bit of ramp, and it's a 5 mana 5/6. So, what can you say? So Nissa, who shakes the world. Come on, it's Nissa. It's like totally broken card. So it allows you to double tap all your mana, gives you, creates more creatures. So it puts counters on your lands, which is what we want. And so it does pretty much everything we want it to do. Gargos, the Vicious Watcher. This is a super, super fun one to get out. So basically, you don't have any other Hydras, so the discount doesn't really matter. But whenever you target a creature, then Gargos fights another creature that you don't control. And it doesn't have to. It says fights up to 1, so you could choose 0. Right? So what you can do is if you have Gargos out and Syr Faren, then you can use Oakenform, put it on Syr Faren, for instance, and then Gargos, because Syr Faren was targeted, then Gargos is going to fight another creature. Right, so it's a good form of removal. Has vigilance. It's an 8/7. Like, come on, like, what's not to like? And finally, Mugen the Ineffable. So I actually didn't have this in my original deck, and then I got crushed by it. And I realized, like, because it's colorless, I can put it in there. And hey, why not? Right. So for 6 mana, you can create a 2/2 colorless spirit creature token, and then if that dies, I put the exiled card in my hand. So, like, come on, it's just like extra card draw, which is exactly what I want. Destroys target permanent that's 1 or more colors, like, so it's got a little bit of removal. Like, again, what's not to like with this? And this deck can actually, Mugen in your deck is just super strong. I would strongly recommend it. Okay, as for the lands, we are just playing a few utility lands, but other than that, it's not too much. So Castle Garin Bridge, because all your spells basically are mostly creatures. You can add 6. You can use this ability to add 6 to it whenever you want. So as long as you have 4 mana up, in addition to this, so this and 4 other mana, then basically you can turn that 4 mana into 6 mana, and then you can use that to tap other. To create other abilities like Biogenic Ooze's activated ability, or you can, if you got like Gargos and Mugen or whatever, that you can get the extra mana sometimes to cast both of them in the same turn. Right? Blast Zone. Basically, sometimes if you might have something that's really hard to deal with, like an opponent might have a certain enchantment, or you don't have the right removal or something, you can use Blast Zone to eventually get rid of it. Especially if you know, for instance, their commander is a 3 mana commander. If you just leave 3 counters on Blast Zone, then every time they put their commander out, you can just actually destroy their commander. Right? You got to give up your Blast Zone, but it's a way of getting rid of other things. Field of Ruin. Some decks have cards that are like certain lands, like Castle, that white castle, and also the black one. I forget what their names are, but basically where they can constantly draw cards or create 1/1 tokens. Those are really annoying. So Field of Ruin's just a way to get rid of those. And it replaces itself too, so you can go look for your forest, whatever, to replace it. And then Car's Bastion, just later on, again, like towards the end game, you're going to have a lot of extra mana lying around, so if you can use this to proliferate, then great. If not, well, it doesn't really hurt you, just as 1 extra land and 1 non-green land. So, but if you can use that to proliferate, then it's great. You can proliferate onto Mugen, Nissa, Jiang Yu, and also all these other things that also have counters. So that's the whole deck. So let me know what you think in the comments, and if you have any suggestions for removing anything. Like I said, I'd be willing to get rid of Garin Bridge Paladin. Also potentially Nightpack Ambusher is not a tremendous card in this deck. What do you think? So far, like, I played probably about 10 matches. I've lost 2 of them, so I got probably, I would estimate probably between 60 and 70% win rate overall. Like, I feel in some games I got lucky. But overall I think that this is, you probably win more than you lose with this one. So just depending. It has its bad matchups, But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next video.